Hello and welcome to BookSpot. I'm Earl Weinberg. This time we will continue our reading of Have Spacesuit Will Travel by Robert Heinlein. Kip and Pee-wee are struggling across the moon, and Pee-wee has collapsed. So Kip is trying to get a fresh oxygen bottle to her. I made myself stop panicking. My knife, of course, my knife. It was an old scout knife with a loop to hang it from a belt, which was where it was. But the map hooks on Oscar's belt were large for it, and I had to force it on. I twisted it until the loop broke. Then I couldn't get the little blade open. Spacesuit gauntlets don't have thumbnails. I said to myself, Kip, quit running in circles. This is easy. All you have to do is open a knife, and you've got to, because Pee-wee is suffocating. I looked around for a sliver of rock, anything that could pinch hit for a thumbnail. Then I checked my belt. The prospector's hammer did it. The chisel end of the head was sharp enough to open the blade. I cut the clothesline away. I was still blocked. I wanted very badly to get at a bottle on my back. When I had thrown away that empty and put up the last fresh one on my back, I had started feeding from it and saved the almost half charge in the other one. I meant to save it for a rainy day and split it with Pee-wee. Now was the time. She was out of air. I was practically so in one bottle, but still had that half charge in the other, plus an eighth of a charge or less in the bottle that contained straight oxygen, the best I could hope for in equalizing pressure. I had planned to surprise her with a 1/4 charge of oxyhelium that would last longer and give more cooling. A real knight errant plan, I thought. I didn't waste 2 seconds discarding it. I couldn't get that bottle off my back. Maybe if I hadn't modified the backpack for non-regulation bottles, I could have done it. The manual says, reach over your shoulder with the opposite arm, close stop valves at bottle and helmet, disconnect the shackle, yada yada. My pack didn't have shackles. I had substituted straps. But I still don't think you can reach over your shoulder in a pressurized suit and do anything effective. I think that was written by a man at a desk. Maybe he had seen it done under favorable conditions. Maybe he had done it, but was one of those freaks who can dislocate both shoulders. But I'll bet a full charge of oxygen that the riggers around Space Station 2 did it for each other, as Pee-wee and I had done, or went inside and deflated. If I ever get a chance, I'll change that. Everything you have to do in a spacesuit should be arranged to do in front. Valves, shackles, everything, even if it is to affect something in back. We aren't like Wormface with eyes all around and arms that bend in a dozen places. We're built to work in front of us. That goes triple in a spacesuit. You need a chin window to let you see what you're doing, too. A thing can look fine on paper and be utterly crummy in the field. But I didn't waste time moaning. I had a 1/8 charge of oxygen I could reach. I grabbed it. That poor overworked adhesive tape was a sorry mess. I didn't bother with bandage. If I could get the tape to stick at all, I'd be happy. I handled it as carefully as gold leaf, trying to get it tight, and stopped in the middle to close Pee-wee's exhaust entirely when it looked as if her suit was collapsing. I finished with trembling fingers. I didn't have Pee-wee to close a valve. I simply gripped that haywire joint in one hand, opened Pee-wee's empty bottle with the other, swung over fast and opened the oxygen bottle wide, jerked my hand across and grabbed the valve of Pee-wee's bottle and watched those gauges. The two needles moved toward each other. When they slowed down, I started closing her bottle, and the taped joint blew out. I got that valve closed in a hurry. I didn't lose much gas from Pee-wee's bottle, but what was left on the supply side leaked away. I didn't stop to worry. I peeled away a scrap of adhesive, made sure the bayonet and snap joint was clean, got that slightly recharged bottle on Pee-wee's suit, opened stop valves. Her suit started to distend. I opened one exhaust valve a crack and touched helmets. Pee-wee, Pee-wee, can you hear me? Wake up, baby. Mother thing, make her wake up, she sang. Pee-wee. Yes, Kip. Wake up. On your feet, champ. Get up. Honey, please get up. Huh? Help, help me get my helmet off. I can't breathe. Yes, you can. Kick your chin valve. Feel it. Taste it. Fresh air. She tried feebly. I gave her a quick, strong shot, overriding her chin valve from outside. Oh, see, you've got air. You've got lots of air. Now get up. Oh, please, just let me lie here. No, you don't. You're a nasty, mean, spoiled little brat, and if you don't get up, nobody will love you. The mother thing won't love you. Mother thing, tell her. Stand up, daughter. Pee-wee tried. I helped her once she was trying. She trembled and clung to me, and I kept her from falling. Mother thing, she said faintly, I did it. You still love me? Yes, darling. I'm dizzy. I don't want to think I don't think I can walk. You don't have to, honey, I said, and gently picked her up in my arms. You don't have to walk any farther. She didn't weigh anything. The trail disappeared when we were down out of the foothills, but the crawler's tracks were sharp in the dust and led due west. I had my air trimmed down until the needle of the blood color indicator hung at the edge of the danger sector. I held it there, kicking my chin valve only when it swung past into danger. I figured that the designer must have left some leeway, the way they do with gasoline gauges. I had long since warned Pee Wee never to take her eyes off her own indicator and hold it at the danger limit. She promised, and I kept reminding her. I pressed her helmet against the yoke of mine so we could talk. I counted paces, and every half mile I told Pee Wee to call Tombaugh Station. It was over the horizon, but they might have a high mast that could see a long way. The mother thing talked to her too, anything to keep her from slipping away again. It saved my strength to have the mother thing talk and was good for all of us. After a while, I noticed that my needle had drifted into the red again. I kicked the valve and waited. Nothing happened. I kicked it again, and the needle drifted slowly toward the white. How you fixed for air, Pee Wee? Just fine, Kip. Just fine. Oscar was yelling at me. I blinked and noticed that my shadow had disappeared. It had been stretched out ahead at an angle to the tracks. The tracks were there, but my shadow was not. That made me sore, so I turned around and looked for it. It was behind me. The darn thing had been hiding. Games. That's better, said Oscar. It's hot in here, Oscar. You think it's cool out here? Keep your eye on that shadow, bud, and on those tracks. All right, quit pestering me. I made up my mind that I didn't let that shadow get away again. Games it wanted to play, huh? There's darn little air in here, Oscar. Breathe shallow, chum. We can make it. I'm breathing my socks now, so breathe your shirt. Did I see a ship pass over? How should I know? You're the one with the blinkers. Don't get smart. I'm in no mood to joke. I was sitting on the ground with Pee Wee across my knees, and Oscar was really shouting, and so was the mother thing. Get up, you big ape! Get up and try! Get up, Kip dear. Only a little way now. I just want to get my wind. All right, you've got it. Call Tombaugh Station. I said, Pee Wee, call Tombaugh Station. She didn't answer. That scared me, and I snapped out of it. Tombaugh Station, come in, come in. I got on my knees and then to my feet. Tombaugh Station, do you read me? Help, help. A voice answered, I read you. Help, Mayday, I've got a little girl dying. Help. Suddenly, it sprang up in front of my eyes. Great shiny domes, tall towers, radio telescopes, a giant Schmidt camera. I staggered toward it. Mayday! An enormous lock opened, and a crawler came toward me. A voice in my phones said, We're coming. Stay where you are. Over and out. A crawler stopped near me. A man got out, came over and touched helmets. I gasped, Help me get her inside. I got back, You've given me trouble, bub. I don't like people who give me trouble. A bigger, fatter man got out behind him. The smaller man raised a thing like a camera and aimed at me. That was the last I knew. Chapter 7. I don't know if they took us all that weary way back in the crawler or if Wormface sent a ship. I woke up being slapped and was inside, lying down. The skinny one was slapping me, the man the fat one called Tim. I tried to fight back and found that I couldn't. I was in a straitjacket thing that was held me as snugly as a wrapped mummy. I let out a yelp. Skinny grabbed my hair, jerked my head up, tried to put a big capsule into my mouth. I tried to bite him. He slapped me harder and offered me the capsule again. His expression didn't change. It stayed mean. I heard, Take it, boy, and turned my eyes. The fat man was on the other side. Better swallow it, he said. You got 5 bad days ahead. I took it. not because of the advice, but because a hand held my nose and another popped the pill into my mouth when I gasped. Fatty held a cup of water for me to wash it down. I didn't resist that, I needed it. Skinny stuck a hypodermic needle big enough for a horse into my shoulder. I told him what I thought of him, using words I hardly ever use. The skinny one could have been deaf. The fat one chuckled. I rolled my eyes at him. You too, I said weakly. Squared. Fatty clucked reprovingly. You ought to be glad we saved your life, he added. Though it wasn't my idea, you strike me as a sorry team. He wanted you alive. Shut up, Skinny said. Strap his head. Let him break his neck. We better fix ourselves. He won't wait. But he started to obey. Skinny glanced at his watch. 4 minutes. The fat one hastily tightened a strap across my forehead, then both moved very fast, swallowing capsules, giving each other hypos. I watched as best I could. I was back in the ship. The ceiling glowed the same way, the walls looked the same. It was the room the two men used. Their beds were on each side, and I was strapped to a soft couch between them. Each hurriedly got on his bed, began zipping up a tight wrapping like a sleeping bag. Each strapped his head in place before completing the process. I was not interested in them. Hey, what did you do with Pee Wee? The fat man chuckled. Hear that, Tim? That's a good one. Shut up. You! I was about to sum up Fatty's character, but my thoughts got fuzzy and my tongue was thick. Besides, I wanted to ask about the mother thing, too. I did not get out another word. Suddenly, I was incredibly heavy, and the couch was rock hard. For a long, long time, I wasn't awake or truly asleep. At first, I couldn't feel anything but that terrible weight. Then I hurt all over and wanted to scream. I didn't have the strength for it. Slowly, the pain went away, and I stopped feeling anything. I wasn't a body, just me, no attachments. I dreamed a lot, and none of it made sense. I seemed to be stuck in a comic book, the sort PTA meetings passed resolutions against, and the baddies were way ahead no matter what I did. Once the couch gave a twisting lurch, and suddenly I had a body, one that was dizzy. After a few ages, I realized vaguely that I had gone through a skew flip turnover. I had known during lucid moments that I was going somewhere very fast at terribly high acceleration. I decided solemnly that we must be halfway and tried to figure out how long 2 times eternity was. It kept coming out to 85 cents plus tax, and the cash register rang no sale, and I would start over. Fats was undoing my head strap. It stuck and skin came away. Rise and shine, bub, time's a wastin'. A croak was all I managed. The skinny one was unwrapping me. My legs sagged apart and hurt. Get up. I tried and didn't make it. Skinny grabbed one of my legs and started to knead it. I screamed. Here, let me do that, said Fatty. I used to be a trainer. Fats did know something about it. I gasped when his thumbs dug into my calves and he stopped. Too rough? I couldn't answer. He went on massaging me and said almost jovially, 5 days at 8 gravities ain't no joyride, but you'll be okay. Got the needle, Tim? The skinny one jabbed me in my left thigh. I hardly felt it. Fats pulled me to a sitting position and handed me a cup. I thought it was water. It wasn't, and I choked and sprayed. Fats waited, then gave it to me again. Drink some this time, he said. Okay, up on your feet. Vacation is over. The floor swayed, and I had to grab him until it stopped. Where are we? I said hoarsely. Fats grinned as if he knew an enormously funny joke. Pluto, of course. Lovely place, Pluto. A summer resort. Shut up. Get him moving. Shake it up, kid. You don't want to keep him waiting. Pluto? It couldn't be. Nobody could get that far. Why, they hadn't even attempted Jupiter's moons yet. Pluto was so much further than that. My brain wasn't working. The experience My brain wasn't working. The experience just past had shaken me so badly that I couldn't accept the fact that the experience proved that I was wrong. But Pluto? I wasn't given time to wonder. We got into spacesuits. Although I hadn't known, Oscar was there, and I was so glad to see him that I forgot everything else. He hadn't been racked, just tossed on the floor. I bent down, discovering Charlie horses in every muscle, and checked him. He didn't seem hurt. Get in it, Fats ordered. Quit fiddling. All right, I answered almost cheerfully. Then I hesitated. Say, I haven't any air. Take another look, said Fats. I looked. Charged oxyhelium bottles were on the backpack. Although, he continued, if we didn't have orders from him, I wouldn't give you a whiff of Limburger. You made us for 2 bottles, and a rock hammer, and a line that cost $4.95 Earthside. Sometime, he stated without rancor, I'm going to take it out of your hide. Shut up, said Skinny. Get going. I spread Oscar open, wriggled in, clipped on the blood color reader, and zipped the gaskets. Then I stood up, clamped my helmet, and felt better just to be inside. Tight? Tight, Oscar agreed. We're a long way from home, but we got air. Chin up, pal. Which reminded me to check the chin valve. Everything was working. My knife was gone, and so were the hammer and line, but those were incidentals. We were tight. I followed Skinny out with Fats behind me. We passed Wormface in the corridor, or a Wormface, but while I shuddered, I had Oscar around me, and I felt that he couldn't get at me. Another creature joined us in the airlock, and I had to look twice to realize it was a Wormface in a spacesuit. The material was smooth and did not bulge the way ours did. It looked like a dead tree trunk with bare branches and heavy roots, but the supreme improvement was its helmet, a glassy, smooth dome. One-way glass, I suppose. I couldn't see in. Cased that way, a worm face was grotesquely ridiculous rather than terrifying, but I stood no closer than I had to. Pressure was dropping, and I was busy wasting air to keep from swelling up. It reminded me of what I wanted most to know, what had happened to Pee Wee and the mother thing. So I keyed my radio and announced, Radio check, Alpha Bravo Coca. Shut up that nonsense. When I want you, I'll tell you. The outer door opened, and I had my first view of Pluto. I don't know what I expected. Pluto is so far out that they can't get decent photographs even at Luna Observatory. I had read articles in Scientific American and seen pictures in Life, bone stalled to look like photographs, and remembered it was approaching its summer, if summer is the word for warm enough to melt air. I recalled that because they had announced that Pluto was showing an atmosphere as it got closer to the sun. But I had never been much interested in Pluto. Too few facts and too much speculation, too far away and not desirable real estate. By comparison, the moon was a choice residential suburb. Professor Tombaugh, the one the station is named for, was working on a giant electronic telescope to photograph it under a Guggenheim grant, but he had a special interest. He had discovered Pluto years before I was born. The first thing I noticed as the door was opening was click, 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 and a fourth click in my helmet as Oscar's heating units all cut in. The sun was in front of me. I didn't realize what it was at first. It looked no bigger than Venus or Jupiter does from Earth, although much brighter. With no disk you could be sure of, it looked like an electric arc. Bats jabbed me in the ribs. Snap out of it. A drawbridge joined the door to an elevated roadway that led into the side of a mountain about 200 yards away. The road was supported on spidery legs 2 or 3 feet high, up to 10 or 12, depending on the lay of the land. The ground was covered with snow, glaringly white even under that pinpoint sun. Where the stilts were longest, about halfway, the viaduct crossed a brook. What sort of water was that? Methane? What was the snow? Solid ammonia? I didn't have tables to tell me what was solid, what was liquid, and what was gas at whatever hellish cold Pluto enjoyed in the summer. All I knew was that it got so cold in its winter that it didn't have any gas or liquid, just vacuum, like the moon. I was glad to hurry. A wind blew from our left and was not only freezing that side of me in spite of Oscar's best efforts, it made the foothold hazardous. I decided it would be far safer to do that forced march on the moon again than to fall into that snow. Would a man struggle before he shattered himself and his suit, or would he die as he hit? Adding to hazard of wind and no guardrail was traffic, space-suited worm faces. They moved at twice our speed and shared the road the way a dog shares a bone. Even Skinny resorted to fancy footwork, and I had 3 narrow squeaks. The way continued into a tunnel. 10 feet inside, a panel snapped out of the way as we got near it. 20 feet beyond was another. It did the same and closed behind us. There were about 2 dozen panels, each behaving like fast acting gate valves, and the pressure was a little higher after each. I couldn't see what had operated them, although it was light in the tunnel from glowing ceilings. Finally, we passed through a heavy duty airlock, but the pressure was already taken care of and its doors stood open. It led into a large room. Wormface was inside, the Wormface, I think, because he spoke in English. Come, I heard it through my helmet. But I couldn't be sure it was he, as there were others around, and I would have less trouble telling warthogs apart. Wormface hurried away. He was not wearing a spacesuit, and I was relieved when he turned because I could no longer see his squirming mouth. But it was only a slight improvement, as it brought into sight his rear view eye. We were hard put to keep up. He led us down a corridor to the right through another open double set of doors and finally stopped suddenly just short of a hole in the floor, about like a sewer manhole. Undress it, he commanded. Fats and Skinny had their helmets open, so I knew it was safe in one way. But in every other way, I wanted to stay inside Oscar as long as Wormface was around. Fats unclamped my helmet. Out of that skin, bub. Snap it up. Skinny loosened my belt, and they quickly had the suit off, even though I hindered. Wormface waited. As soon as I was out of Oscar, he pointed at the hole. Down! I gulped. That hole looked as deep as a well, and less inviting. Down, he repeated. Now! Do it, bub, Fats advised. Jump or be pushed. Get down that hole before he gets annoyed. I tried to run. Wormface was around me and chivying me back before I was well started. I slammed on the brakes and backed up, glancing behind just in time to turn a fall into a clumsy jump. There was a long way to the bottom. Landing did not hurt the way it would have on Earth, but I turned an ankle. That didn't matter. I wasn't going anywhere. The hole in the ceiling was the only exit. So, we will find out what life is like in what we used to call an oubliette. An oubliette is a hole where you put someone to forget about them. And we'll find out about it next time.